Inside a high-rise apartment in New York, a little girl named Aurora is afraid to fall asleep because she is convinced a monster lives beneath her bed. When she starts screaming, her parents rush into the room. She urgently tells them not to step on the floor, warning that the monster will devour them if they do. Her parents try to comfort her, assuring her that nothing is there, and eventually they leave her alone. Still too frightened to sleep, Aurora chooses to rest outside her bedroom instead. Carefully, she peeks back into the room and notices a bunny shape formed from dust. She shuts her eyes and makes a wish, and suddenly a glowing firefly appears. Curious, she follows the tiny light through the apartment building until it stops at a mailbox. When she sees who owns the mailbox, she starts following him. The man steps out of the elevator, and Aurora quietly follows. She realizes he lives in the same building and is her neighbor. Later that night, she secretly trails him through a tight alley. Sensing movement, he suddenly turns around, and Aurora quickly hides. She keeps following him all the way to Chinatown, where a colorful festival is taking place. On the way, she finds a mask and puts it on. From a nearby rooftop, she watches as the neighbor battles a dragon in a fierce fight. After a long and violent struggle, he defeats the beast. Aurora follows him back to their apartment building. Once he goes inside his apartment, she returns to hers, where her parents scold her for sneaking out. From his doorway, the neighbor silently observes the situation. A few minutes later, her parents once again try to calm her, promising there is no monster in her room. Her mother softly tells her to stop sucking her thumb. They say goodnight, but Aurora answers, "Goodbye, Mom and Dad." Shortly after they leave, she hears a creaking sound under the floor, followed by her parents screaming. The next morning, Aurora wakes to complete silence in the apartment. Avoiding contact with the floor, she uses an ottoman to move around while calling for her parents. No one answers. As night comes again, she returns to her bedroom, still using the ottoman to stay off the floor. She leaps onto a shelf, but a grape drops down. She climbs onto her bed but accidentally knocks her shoe to the ground. A deep growl rumbles from beneath the floorboards. Terrified, she watches as something grabs the grape, then spits it out violently, smashing a lamp. She tosses her blanket over the gap, but it is instantly pulled inside. The creature then violently shakes her bed, tossing it back and forth and trapping her. Suddenly, everything stops, and the creature withdraws. The next morning, Aurora wakes up thinking it was just a bad dream until she sees the shattered lamp. Later, she attends church. When the donation basket is passed around, she waits patiently for it to reach her. Then she grabs it and runs back toward her building. About an hour later, the neighbor checks his mailbox and finds several letters. One letter is signed with the initial A. He goes back to his apartment and reads it. After realizing someone is trying to hire him to kill, he takes out a pile of cash and starts counting it. A knock at the door interrupts him. When he opens it, he sees the girl from across the hall. She asks if the money is enough. He turns away and continues counting. He asks her what her name is. Aurora, she says, then asks for his name. He refuses to tell her. After finishing the count, he says it's around $300 and asks where she got it. She explains she stole it from church and asks if it's enough to kill the monster. Puzzled, he asks how she knows he kills monsters. She tells him she saw him defeat the dragon in Chinatown. He asks her to explain, and she describes seeing him slice open the dragon's stomach. He brushes off her story, claiming she imagined it and insisting monsters aren't real. Aurora firmly insists they are. He then asks if she told her parents about him killing monsters. Quietly, she says the monster already ate them. He tells her to show him where it happened. Aurora leads him to her apartment. On the way, he asks what she was doing when her parents were attacked. She says she was hiding under her blanket. She brings him into her parents' bedroom. He looks around and says that if a monster killed them, there should be blood. Aurora explains the creature leaves nothing behind because it swallows people whole. As he searches the room, he spots a bullet casing on the floor and slips it into his pocket. Noticing deep claw marks carved into the furniture, he remains skeptical and asks how no one heard such violence. Aurora answers, it eats everything, even their screams. He suggests calling the police. She says she wouldn't know what to tell them. With a tired sigh, he tells her he has never killed monsters, or anyone. He asks why a monster would target her family. Because they stepped on the floor, she calmly replies. He tells her that the monsters he knows don't kill over something like that. Then he tells her to leave. Later, he meets his handler, Levern, who arranges his jobs as a hired assassin. He shows her a picture of Aurora's parents and asks if she recognizes them. He explains they were his neighbors and were professionally made to disappear without a trace. Not even a drop of blood was left behind. He adds that their daughter believes a monster ate them. Levern arches an eyebrow and asks if he's now hunting a monster. He says the creature was actually after him but entered the wrong apartment. When Aurora's parents saw it, they were killed. Since the girl never saw its face, she was spared. Levern agrees to investigate but says she's more worried that the girl has seen him. He firmly says he will not harm the child. She's already at risk because of him. Levern simply nods. That night, he hears the elevator chime and immediately understands the situation. He forces his way into Aurora's apartment, warning her that danger is coming and telling her to hide in the closet. He waits for the assassins Levern has sent to eliminate the girl. Although he drops his knife, he manages to fight one attacker. After a violent struggle, he defeats the assassin but passes out. Meanwhile, Aurora hears her bedroom window creak open. Another assassin shoots at the bed, then notices her hiding in the closet. She prepares herself to die. Suddenly, she hears a deep growl and the sound of the monster consuming the assassin. Eventually, the neighbor regains consciousness and rushes into her room. He asks if she's okay. She nods. He asks if anyone else was there. She nods again. He assumes the second attacker escaped down the fire escape, but Aurora says the monster ate her too. Confused, he asks where the monster is now since he's standing on the floor unharmed. Aurora whispers, "It's eating." He checks the hallway and then looks under her bed. Finding nothing, he pulls suitcases from the closet and drags the corpse into the bathroom. As he gets ready to cut it apart, Aurora startles him by asking what he's doing. He explains he's draining the blood so it won't be messy when he cuts it up. She asks why that's necessary. He tells her he has to dispose of the body. Aurora suggests leaving it in her room for the monster to handle, but he refuses. When she asks if she can watch, he firmly says no. After finishing, he asks if she wants to help wrap the pieces. She agrees. Curious, Aurora asks who the dead man was. The neighbor tells her he was a killer. She wonders aloud if the murderer came to destroy the monster, but the neighbor, losing patience, bluntly tells her that her parents were murdered, not devoured by any creature. Aurora then asks if someone chopped her parents into pieces too. He shakes his head and explains there was never a monster in Chinatown. It was men. He tells her plainly that no creature killed her parents. They were murdered by men who were trying to get to him. Aurora tells him to stop inventing stories to comfort her, insisting again that a monster ate her parents. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. The neighbor opens it and sees a woman who introduces herself as Brenda from Child Care Services. She says they had scheduled a visit. The neighbor responds that the timing isn't good and comments on how challenging raising a child can be. Brenda agrees and says it's even more complicated when you're fostering. Pulling himself together, the neighbor quickly adds that they are the first family she's had since the incident. Brenda corrects him, saying, "You're actually the third." Not knowing what to say, he coughs, claims he feels sick, and says they should arrange another time. After she leaves, he realizes the woman clearly wasn't a real social worker. Meanwhile, Brenda tells her partner that the man is definitely not Aurora's foster father. The neighbor asks Aurora if this truly is her third family. She nods and explains that the monster ate the others. He asks her where the monster came from. Aurora answers that she wished for it. She says she made the wish on a shooting star, just like she wished for him to kill it. Puzzled, the neighbor asks why she would ever wish for her parents to be eaten by a monster. Aurora explains that her birth parents were cruel to her, though she later regretted wanting them gone. He asks if her family had treated her badly. Aurora replies that some of them were just confused. He wonders why the monster would attack the kind ones. Aurora says the monster wants to eat her because she is bad and doesn't deserve a family. The neighbor gently reassures her. He tells her he has met truly evil people, and she is not one of them. Then he asks where the monster is now. Aurora glances around and says it hides under her bed during the day and only comes out at night. She begs him to protect her. He asks whether she ever wished for the monster to disappear. Aurora says she tried, but nothing changed. The neighbor asks where she would go if the monster were gone and if anyone would notice if she vanished. Aurora says no, explaining that everyone who might have cared about her has already been eaten. She then asks him if anyone would miss him if he disappeared. The neighbor says nothing. Aurora quietly tells him she would miss him. That night, the neighbor meets Levern at a restaurant with two suitcases. He explains that one holds a dead assassin and the other contains the little girl. Levern assumes the assassin killed the girl and that the neighbor killed the assassin. He nods in agreement. Levern says she sent two assassins. The neighbor responds that he only encountered one who tried to attack him. Levern insists she never ordered them to kill him and asks if he did something to provoke the fight. He admits he might have thrown the first punch. Levern nods, saying she was simply trying to help by removing the witness. He thanks her for that. Levern then says she investigated Aurora's parents and discovered they were foster guardians, which he already knew. He asks about Aurora's biological parents. Levern explains they abandoned her when she was young and tells him to recognize the pattern, hinting that Aurora herself might be the monster. She also warns him that the men he killed in Chinatown were part of a Chinese syndicate who now want revenge. At that moment, Aurora walks up to him. He scolds her for leaving the apartment. Aurora says she thought he wasn't coming back. Levern invites Aurora to sit beside her. Aurora chooses to sit next to the neighbor instead. She asks him if he was planning to leave her. He replies that he never promised he would stay. Aurora reminds him that she hired him and paid him. Levern sharply interrupts, saying that in some cultures children aren't considered people and tells Aurora to be quiet. She then tells the neighbor that his unresolved childhood trauma is likely why he's trying to save this girl. Levern looks at Aurora and asks what she meant about hiring him. The neighbor explains that Aurora paid him to kill the monster under her bed and that her biological parents were eaten by it too. Levern dismisses the story as ridiculous. Aurora insists that the girl who climbed through her window was also eaten. The neighbor clarifies that it was actually the second assassin. Levern warns Aurora that if she wants to survive, she should leave immediately or she'll end up dead. Later, the neighbor takes Aurora to a restaurant in Chinatown. From across the room, a man keeps watching them. Aurora asks the neighbor to become her father. He refuses, noting that none of her former fathers survived. He tells her they barely know each other and that what she thinks she wants isn't real, only something her mind created. He explains that he once believed his own mother was beautiful even though she wasn't, because that's what he chose to see. At that moment, the man who had been observing them approaches the table. He asks the neighbor if the girl is his daughter. The neighbor says no. At the same time, Aurora says yes. The man calmly says that even if she were his daughter, it wouldn't change what's about to happen. They leave the restaurant, but the man and his associates follow closely. Later, Brenda comes to Aurora's apartment at the neighbor's request. He apologizes for turning her away earlier that morning. Aurora quickly warns Brenda not to step on the floor. The neighbor tells Brenda to ignore her, explaining that Aurora believes a monster devoured her entire family. He then shuts the door. Aurora goes back to her room and hides beneath the special blanket he made for her. Meanwhile, the neighbor tells Brenda that they are all going to die. He explains that Aurora's families didn't just vanish mysteriously. He admits he is only her neighbor, not her guardian as he claimed. He says he lied because he panicked when Brenda showed up after Aurora told him about the monster. He tells Brenda that Aurora truly believes in the monster, though he doesn't think she's lying. He says she might be delusional. He urges Brenda to call for backup, warning that the monster has followed her home. Brenda contacts her partner and tells him to send the team inside. The doorbell rings. The neighbor opens it and finds Levern there. She scolds him and tells him to leave, saying several men downstairs are waiting to kill him. He calmly tells her not to worry and reveals that the FBI is inside calling for reinforcements, and that he's just a concerned neighbor from 5B. Levern laughs at him. He insists he planned everything, framing the Chinese crime syndicate for the murders of Aurora's families so he can finally escape them. Levern argues that the girl still needs to die. He gently kisses her hand and walks back inside. He tells Brenda the visitor was only a worried neighbor. Brenda then admits she is with the FBI and has been investigating the disappearance of Aurora's families. The neighbor pretends to be shocked. Brenda explains that a strange clue was found at the home of Aurora's birth parents. There was an open bottle of thumb-sucking deterrent on her nightstand. Someone had been applying it to Aurora's fingers before they disappeared, along with the small brush used to apply it. That brush was later discovered beneath the floorboards under Aurora's bed. The neighbor suggests maybe the monster spit it out since it was meant to repel. Suddenly, gunshots echo through the apartment. They rush into Aurora's room where she screams at them not to touch the floor. They immediately lift their feet. The neighbor tells her to stay inside her room. They move toward the entrance as armed members of the Chinese gang storm in, shooting wildly. Brenda is struck and falls. The neighbor pulls her to safety. He realizes her gun is empty, searches her for another magazine, and is stunned to find she's still breathing. Outside, the gunman advanced deeper into the apartment. In the bathroom, the neighbor hears a low growl coming from beneath the floor. He quickly steps off and urgently tells Brenda to do the same. As the gang approaches Aurora's bedroom, they come face to face with the monster. The men fire in terror. During the chaos, the neighbor searches a drawer, finds the thumb-sucking deterrent, and slips it into his pocket. Moments later, one attacker is violently hurled into the bathroom. Brenda shoots him dead. The remaining men, now aware of the creature, cling to the walls to avoid touching the floor. Despite this, one drops his weapon and reaches down for it, only to be dragged under the floor and eaten instantly. Back in the bathroom, the neighbor and Brenda push the corpse into the hallway where the monster immediately consumes it. Just then, FBI agents burst into the apartment and order everyone to lie on the floor. The survivors frantically explain they can't, but the agents ignore them. As the FBI moves toward the bathroom, Brenda identifies the neighbor as the concerned man from 5B. Minutes later, the agents step back into the hallway. Brenda urgently shouts for them to get off the floor, saying something is inside it. One by one, they are pulled under and devoured. Amid the chaos, the neighbor survives and calls to Aurora, telling her to prepare to escape through the fire escape. But before he reaches her bed, the monster drags him beneath the floorboards. The next morning, Aurora wakes to see him crawling back out, saved by the thumb-sucking deterrent. At that moment, Levern enters the apartment intending to kill Aurora. The neighbor urgently shouts, "Mom, get off the floor." Levern angrily snaps at him, telling him not to call her that. Seconds later, she too is dragged under and consumed by the monster. The neighbor and Aurora get ready to leave, but the monster blocks their way. It becomes clear the creature never actually intended to eat Aurora. The neighbor understands and tells her the monster belongs to her. She wished it into existence, and now she has to live with it. Aurora nods, accepting the truth. Together they walk out of the apartment, the monster trailing quietly behind them in the shadows.